In this video, we are going to look at the requirements for your literary analysis, which answers whether or not John Proctor is a tragic hero. All good writing has three main parts: a beginning, middle, and end. When you're talking about literary analysis essays, those parts are called an introduction, the body, where your analysis occurs, and then the conclusion. This first slide is going to show you the required elements for parts of an introduction. If you look at the descriptions really quick along here, you're going to see, let me go back. You're going to see that I've actually written out the requirements in regards to this essay specifically in order to help you do a better job of putting your essay together. So the very first thing you always want to do is grab your reader's attention so they want to read your amazing work. So the first thing you want to include in your introductory paragraph is a hook. This hook can be anything from a question or an interesting fact, a great quote from either Arthur Miller or your favorite line from the play. And then from there you actually need to mention the text, then briefly summarize it. This should actually be 3 to 4 sentences long. For example, you're going to want to start this part by saying something along the lines of, in his play, The Crucible, Arthur Miller looks at guilt and redemption. From this point on, what you're going to want to do then is spend 2 to 3 more sentences summarizing the rest of the play. You just want to give your reader a general idea about what the play is about. At this point, you're going to want to include background information. Not all essays need this, but because you're going to define or prove that John Proctor is a tragic hero, you need to make sure that you and your reader are on the same page when it comes to what a tragic hero is. The next main part, honestly, is your thesis, which I have actually provided for you at the very bottom down here. However, to get from your background information to your thesis, you don't want it to read really clunky or really choppy, so you will always want to include a transitional sentence that moves your reader from that background information to your thesis. Please note that I've actually given you your thesis so that you know what to write about. So our thesis for this essay is going to be, John Proctor is a tragic hero because he is noble in character, he has a tragic flaw, he suffers greatly, and he finds redemption at the end of the story. If you remember back in our in our readings, what you have done is actually looked at and written paragraphs about John Proctor's character, about his tragic flaw, how he suffers, and how he finds redemption. This is going to be excellent because really the only parts you still have to draft are the introduction and then the conclusion. To remind you of what should be in those body paragraphs, let's look at each of the body paragraphs that you wrote. I'm not sure if you remember that these were discussion questions, and I'm going to show you how to go back and find these paragraphs in order to build your draft. But for now, let's just review what the requirements were for each of those paragraphs. You have 4 of them. So the first part was that you needed to show how John Proctor is noble. The way you're going to do that is you write a topic sentence about how John is noble. Then you need to create context. And remember, context is what's happening in the story right before the piece of evidence you're going to give us. So you might say something like, in Arthur Miller's description of John, we learn that he is an honest and respected man and has little patience for hypocrisy. We know this when Miller says, and that brings us to part 3, which is our evidence. Remember, evidence is direct quotes that come from your piece of literature, and you are going to want to put quotation marks around that evidence And at the end, in parentheses, put the act number that you found that piece of evidence in. Then this is the meat of your paper. This is your analysis. This is your ideas and your reasons why you think that the evidence you chose proves your topic sentence about how John is noble. Finally, you will write a concluding sentence to finish up that paragraph. So let's look at the next paragraph. I'm going to go through those a little bit, the next 3 paragraphs a little bit faster because they follow the same format. They just have a different topic. So the next body paragraph will be about John Proctor's tragic flaw. Again, the first thing you need to do is have a topic sentence that states what John's tragic flaw is. After that, you want to create the context or let your reader know about where in the story your evidence occurs. Then you want to provide your evidence. Again, it's the direct quote. It has quotation marks on the beginning, at the very beginning of it, and at the end. And you want to cite, where you got that from. And the way you do your citation is a parentheses, act, the number, the act number that it came from, and then parentheses, period. So if I found his tragic flaw, when we learn about his affair with Abigail or where he loses his honesty, then I would use the act number that came from. If you're going to talk about the part where we learn that he has had an affair with Abigail, you would use that in act number 1. So you just write parentheses, act 1, parentheses, period. Again, you're going to analyze. This analysis should be several sentences long, and then you will conclude with a concluding sentence. The next body paragraph is how John Proctor suffers. Remember, tragic heroes must be tragic, so they have to suffer. So you will write a topic sentence about how John suffers. Again, give that context about where it starts in the story. Provide your evidence. Then focus on that analysis, again, explaining how you think the evidence proves that John suffers, and then write a concluding sentence. The final part, which is my favorite part of this story, is how John finds redemption. So all tragic heroes must either come to self-awareness or find redemption. You will create that topic sentence about how John found redemption, give the context from the story, again, providing that evidence with the citation, analyze why you think that he has found redemption based on the evidence you gave, and then give a concluding sentence. At this point, you will need to write a conclusion, and this brings everything together. And this is the one area I think students struggle with or don't think is as important as the rest of the paragraph. And what I tell students is, you've worked your butt off in order to get to this point. This is the point that you want to wow your reader and say, I'm amazing, and these are my reasons why I believe he's a tragic hero, and you want to leave them wowed and going, that was awesome. So the big thing is a lot of students will give their reworded thesis, and then they will give a brief summary of their essay, but they leave that wow moment, that clincher, out. And this is the part that you've been working up to. So make sure you leave us with something to think about. Remember, if you need help, to contact your teacher, and happy writing.